You're right. Why are some people? Oh no.
It is a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Dude, I just want to break it so bad.
What is the thing on?
Oh, because the soccer's on when they moved it because of the weather. You're worried about the weather. Okay, so a couple of things in real quick. We are going to do talk here about thesis statements, and this is a sheet I give on writing an essay. And obviously, you need to know to write an essay. We've already broken it down some parts of it. There are 2 essays on the AP exam, and that reminds me. I guess it is tomorrow is the last day you can pay for the AP exam. And that's $100. And if you plan on paying it or plan on taking the test, you have to pay by then. They bumped it up. I don't agree with why they did it, but I have no control over that. They want everyone paid now. And it's $100. If there's any issues, you want to talk to your counselor or need to talk to your counselor, go talk to them. They're very easy to work with here. But tomorrow's the last day. And remember, I do reward you immensely for doing it. Remember, I told you I give you 2 finals, second semester, and the one is very, very large, but if you take the AP exam, I waive that. And so tomorrow, please have that pay, or if you're going to take it, please do. And you have to go pay today. And like I told you, give me $100, I'll make sure you can give it to me. Only problem is the longer you wait, then everyone will do it at once, and then you gotta wait in line.
So small. It takes
No, it's a tough job back there.
25 minutes.
Okay, and make sure you get a receipt and all that. All right, so let's get back to the AP exam. There are actually 2 essays you have to write. And so one essay involves documents called the document-based question, which is the same basic format. We'll talk about it. Some of you already know what it is. We do it, and I'll give you hints and talk about that. You also get more time. But a basic essay is the basic premise of this. And on one side, I have essay writing tips, and a lot of it's things you've already had in class, other classes that should be familiar. There are things that I've learned, things I think are more important. Turn it over. Now, did we just get one extra one and you stuck behind, or was that there already? And so you just stuck it back there, hoping that it would eventually go up to someplace else. What are you going to do with that right now? You're going to give it to me now. And in fact, a good way to irritate me is to make me do extra work like that, like picking it up. You don't want to irritate me. Not because I will somehow hit you, but wait a minute, I will. Because I'll remember that the next time I grade your paper. Hey, I'm human, right? So I remember irritations of people. Oh, yeah. I just don't see it here. Okay, so with that, by the way, yeah, it's true. So let's get to this. On the side, I have essay writing tips. If you turn it over, that is the guidelines that the College Board grades. Actually, they call it a rubric. Who agrees with me? That's a horrible word. Rubric. Say it. Rubric. Isn't that just awful? Yeah. It sounds like somebody you don't like. They name them rubric. So you're right. Your name's Rubric? Another piece of the puzzle. Yep. All right, so here's the thing. So in it, it's a 6-point scale. Now let me tell you before we get to that, 6 points, that's it. That's how they grade it. They come up with 6 points. Now before I tell you the secret, which you've already probably guessed, look at the first thing. 1 out of 6 points is just a clear thesis. If you have a good thesis, you've already got it. Excuse me. But you've already got about 18% of your grade. And that's pretty good right there. And then look at the last one. Now, I took this directly from the College Board. So it's after analysis and reasoning, look at number 2. We'll look at number 2 real fast and read it. Would you agree with me that's really vague? You know what that really means is complex understanding? Huh?
Relating it to something.
And relating it to what? To show you have a complex understanding of the essay means you must have all kinds of elements in it to show how you can relate to different things. But here's the key element. It means that also you can form a complex answer to a complex question. And how do you do that? By following your thesis. In reality, that is also grading your thesis. And if you make a good thesis and do the little tips I tell you, you should get both of those points. Technically. Now let's get to the reality of this. It's a 6-point scale. If you write a bad essay, how many points are you going to get on that scale? 1 or 2, right? If you just write a thesis statement and no other words in the essay, are you going to get that 1 point? No. Yes, we want to get the points. Yes, we want to get good thesis. We know they really grade the thesis carefully. But if you write a good essay, they'll come up with a way to make sure you get 5 or 6 points on this. You write a bad essay, you get 1 or 2 points. I will give you the guidelines. I'll show you the certain things you have to have. But here's the key element about this. In any grading of this, anybody, and you probably have a lot of teachers who use like a rubric and a scale, right? Write a good essay, you'll get a good grade on that. That's the way it is. You get a good essay, they'll come up with a way to make that work. So yeah, there's certain things you have to get, but just write a good essay. Answer the question, show you know something, show you're organized, get material down, and you'll get the points. Trust me, I've had to do that with a lot of these so-called rubrics. Read a good essay, trust me, read the essay, okay, I got to figure out a way to make this a good grade. So just write a good essay. So let's get back, let's turn it back over. I give these things, and I'll talk about a little bit more of these on Friday. But the first part is, I say, if you turn it over again, it says read the question. I put down for a good one 8. I could have put down 100 times. Read the question. I can't begin to tell you how awful it is to read an essay where you know they're not answering the question, so you know you're not going to give them a very good grade. Oh God, they have no idea. By the way, if I get an answer to a question, I know they didn't read it, how am I supposed to know that? It's just they don't know anything. They're just writing. But they screwed up. It doesn't look exactly the same. And there's something else. Haven't you ever been frustrated when you get a paper back and you realize, oh, I misread it? Or, you know what the worst was? I've done this. I bet all of you have done this. Halfway through an answer, and also you realize, oh, I'm answering this wrong. Oh, no. And like, oh, no. That's right. Read it carefully. I'll give you a few hints on there about a few of the words. You can do this on your own. Read through that on your own. But read it carefully so you don't screw up. Because it's so easy to do, especially when you're under pressure or you're tired. On the AP exam, you have 55 multiple choice, 3 short answer questions, which are like 9 short IDs, and then 2 essays. You get to that last essay, what are you going to be? Your hand will be like this, right? Right?
Or like 5 paragraphs.
Well, 5 paragraph is like the generic one. You can make it 4 or 6, depending on the essay.
Yeah.
5 paragraphs is generic. That's a lot of writing. It's not huge, but yeah. So, read the question. Next thing, I put down brainstorm list. The big thing about brainstorm is sometimes it's called a memory dump or a brain dump. The big thing is, let's say you forgot something. It's been a long time since you had it, but it's probably somewhere back there in the deep and scary parts of your brain, and you got to pull them out. I mean, think about it. If I say, hey, what were the causes of the American Revolution? Most of you are like, right? You might be thinking something, am I right? But let's say we start going through them. It's amazing how fast your memory can pick up. What was the war that cost the British all the debt? That war that George Washington started. You should know this, all of you. Yes?
7 years war.
Say it again?
7 years.
7 years war, but in the colonies it was known as what war? French and Indian War. You remember that? What's the British policy to suck money out of the colonies?
Oh.
Mercantilism. Once Anthony said that, everybody decided, oh, I remember that. I mean, that's what a brainstorm is. You're like, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. What was that tax they put on all pieces of paper? Stand back. Who are those people who protested and roughed up people who? Sons of Liberty. What was the massacre in Boston? What was the tax that gave the East India, or what was the act that gave the East India Company a monopoly? Tea Act, which led to what? Tea Party, and what were those laws of the British past? What were they? All those things. That's what a brainstorm list is. You just say, oh, I remember that. You might not remember everything, but you might get enough to get an essay. So then the thesis. Then you write your thesis. I know this. I'm going to write the thesis. So I put down a few paragraphs, or a couple paragraphs about thesis, just a few bullet points. And before I get to that, let me tell you one thing about what I do when I think about things. It's just the way my mind works. And so it's just the way my mind works, is the way I teach it. And so you might have to adapt a little bit, but I chunk everything. I think about, I want to make little pieces and I can put together. That's the way I think. That's why we do the short IDs. It's pieces of the essay, but it's not the full thing. We can do elements of an essay, but also I can adapt it to different things. I break up the thesis that way too. I break it up into pieces. Because in a timed essay, you don't have time to like rethink and rewrite how to do an essay. If you have 40 minutes to write a full essay, boy, can't reinvent the wheel. Let's plug in what we know into something we can write quickly and get what we know down. Now, once you get that basic idea of how to write an essay down, when you have more time on an essay where you can go back and revise it, then you add your creative bits and elements to it. The timed essay, we got to go. So everyone on your own, quick read through that essay. I have a bunch of letters. By the way, yes, I do have a math degree. So I think I have a lot of functions in there. It's not math. Don't worry if you don't like math. It's just a way for me to think about it. So everyone read that thing about thesis, just real quick. I'll go back through and explain, don't worry. Or clear it up, I hope. So here's the thing about a thesis statement. When you write it, look at all this stuff about a thesis. I've been in this situation where I have to create a whole stack of essays. You start like words and everything starts blending together, eyes start spinning, that kind of thing. And so what I'm looking for is when I grade an essay, I'm looking for an essay that's organized. I'm looking for an essay that I know what's coming. If I have to decipher through it, I get tired, I get angry, I get irked, all those kind of things. And that's what a thesis does. That is the first sentence, the most important sentence that someone evaluating you is going to look for. They're going to look for that thesis statement. They're going to look for it. They're going to evaluate you, a lot of what you write, the rest of what you write on that thesis statement. If I'm reading an essay and virtually anybody else, and they come to that thesis statement, they look, oh, this is a great thesis statement. They address the question. They give me a position. They lay out the direction they're going. I feel good about that essay. I'm sitting there thinking, wow, that person knows their stuff. They're going to give me a good essay. I know exactly where they're going. I like this person. I want to help them. AKA, you'll get the benefit of the doubt. People are biased. They can't help it. They tend to be human. Humans are biased. And if they read something and think, oh, my first thought is this person is prepared. They read the rest of that essay thinking this could be a good essay. You ever get to that point in an essay where you're just exhausted, your hand is just crumpled up, the clock is running out, you're just trying to get those last words in? Right? You know, everyone knows that. Hey, as a grader, we take that. We understand that, unless that's for jerks. But just imagine we're not a jerk. We understand that. So you get to that fourth paragraph and it starts getting, ugh. But we remember, oh yeah, they're well organized, they're getting tired. Okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm not saying it happens every time, but it is. I'm not saying you'll get a better grade, but you will get the benefit of the doubt if you have a good thesis. But if you give somebody garbage, they'll look at that and just be like, oh, God, this person's a fool. I'm not gonna say, oh, I gotta read this stuff. They can't even write a sentence. Now, I wish people didn't think that way. No, we're not. We're unbiased and we try to be impartial. No, it happens that way. And they'll be like, oh yeah, fourth paragraph, they're tired. It won't be they're tired. Yeah, I knew this paragraph was going to be bad. Whew, I read that thesis. They're clueless. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but do you get my point here? That is why, in a timed essay, hey, you're not going to have the best handwriting. You can't go through it. You're going to have weird words in a sentence. They're going to be awkward. But write that thesis statement out before you write it in your essay. That's the one you want to get good at. And if you have, let's say, unique handwriting, like let's say me, if there's one sentence that's going to be clear, it's got to be that thesis statement. Make the person grading your essay, make their life easy. And lastly, one more thing, and put this on there, and I do write it down, underline your thesis in an essay. They want to hear that. Underline it. If I don't have to search for a thesis statement, I feel really good. And I got that tip from somebody who graded AP exams. And they're giving a great big stack of them. That's why I don't do it. I don't think I can stomach in June grading that many. I needed time off. Miss Pierce did it for AP Euro, and she liked it, but she's obviously younger and has more energy than me, I guess. She liked it. But they fly you someplace cool, so if they fly you someplace cool, and I can do it, maybe I'll do it. Like Jordan, Montana, or something, that'd be fun. Who's with me? Circle? Where the great people live? Okay, with that, I'll tell you about that. It's terrible. But he told me, underline it, you don't have to search for it. It's a really good hint. It really helps. And they're like, okay, I know exactly what they're going to do. So let's get to it. If you got a question, the question is you have to get, I put down the topic, the theme, the historical area. Basically, we're talking about the point of the question. And I call that X. X. Why X? Why not? Give it a letter, X. So I can say, you don't have an X. If the question asked you, did British policy cause the American Revolutionary War? You must address British policy causing the American Revolutionary War. Does that make sense? You have to get that in the thesis. Somehow. Don't repeat the question, but you have to say that. Next, you have to take a position. A position. Basically, you're trying to address the question. And that has to be, I call that Y. X and Y. So let's get back to that question. By the way, you notice we just did a brainstorm over that, so that stuff's fresh in your memory. Did British policy cause the American Revolution? Now, I think yes. So, British policy caused British policy caused the colonists to rebel against Great Britain. I addressed the question, didn't I? Because they tried to enforce the policy of, what was the policy? To tax the colony, to suck money out of it. All of that's mercantilism. Does that make sense to everybody? Point of the question. British policy caused colonists to rebel. Position, they tried to enforce mercantilism. And that will tie it all together. That's your basic element of the question. I've addressed it. It's very simple. It's clean. Boom. And then the last part. It can be in the same sentence or you can have two sentences. The blueprint. That's what he called it. The same guy told me about underlining it. Sometimes you might see it as roadmap, all kinds of names, but the blueprint are main points to prove your argument. A, B, and C, and for some reason there's no parentheses. So, but what were the big things? The big thing, first off, they had the debt because of what? The debt after the French and Indian War. What was the first tax they passed that led to the boycotts and everything else? The what?
Yeah.
Before the Tea Act.
It was on the sugar.
Right after the Sugar Act. Right in between. What was the first act? The Sons of Liberty were created. They had a Congress. They boycotted.
Did you see the Stamp Act?
We already said in class. The Stamp Act. If anyone said I didn't hear it, I'm sorry. But as seen in the British trying to repay their debt after the French and Indian War, colonial protesting and unification against the Stamp Act. And what was the last straw? What law? Give the monopoly. The Tea Act leading to the Tea Party led to revolution. That's a thesis statement. Now, this is how it works though. A, the debt. Everyone got that? B, the Stamp Act and the unification. C, Tea Act. If it's a 5-paragraph essay, what's the first paragraph of the body going to be about? What's that? So what's it going to be? A. The first one's about the debt. What's the next one? Next one. What have we just done? 3 what? Those are 3 short IDs. A is a short ID, B is a short ID, C is a short ID. That's for a 5-paragraph essay. You do a 6-paragraph essay, you need 4 of them. You do a 4-paragraph essay, sometimes essays work out that way, you need 2. Does that make sense? That's all it is to it. In a timed essay, you're going to get nothing different than that. And that's it. And you lay it out. So, I answer the question in A, B, and C. That is an essay. That's all it is. X and Y. So, let's look at a few more. And this is what I have. So we get the X, and this is what I put in. X because of Y, because of A, B, and C, or something does something because reasons. I think that one's funny. Well, let's get to this right here. Oh, we can also have because of A, B, and C, X does Y. That also works. Now, you see that although A, X because of Y, because of B and C, that's if you have a compare and contrast, and we will get to that next when we do a compare and contrast essay. Does that make sense? So, let's look at this format right here. You see this right here? By looking at X, one can see Y, which is important because of A, B, and C. Now, you can't always put those words in, but that is a thesis. That's it. That's all there is to it. Any questions on that? So we should do some. So, how about a sample? The philosophy behind the Declaration of Independence. So what is the philosophy behind the Declaration of Independence? First off, X means we must address what? What? So what must we address? What must be, what's the point?
Philosophy.
So, the philosophy on the Declaration of Independence. By the way, we need to add something there. What was that term for the Age of Reason? So, the philosophy behind the Declaration of Independence was an Enlightenment idea to, now we need the why. Why did they write the Declaration of Independence? It wasn't because they wanted to write a philosophical argument. It's because they wanted to do what? Say it again. So mean, do what to the British? Yeah, break away. Secede out. Break away. So, X. The philosophy behind the Declaration of Independence was an enlightened philosophy to justify independence or breaking away from the British. That's the why. To justify breaking away from the British. Then what's the philosophy? We know the philosophy. In fact, as luck would have it, there are 3 main parts of the philosophy. You better remember these once I start. All men are what? Equal. Equality. What's the next one? And endowed by the Creator with what? What's that?
Opportunity.
Well, that's part of equality, which is good. But the next part of all men are endowed by the Creator with certain what? Unalienable rights. And what are those rights? Just review. So that's 2. And then, do you remember that governments are created to protect rights? And if they infringe on rights, what can the people do? Yeah, change the government. Do you remember what that's called?
Social bond.
Exactly. Social contract. Now, it said social contract, is that like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to remember it. I mean, and if you don't remember the exact term social contract, explain it. But if you remember that, that's great. So what's your first paragraph about? Equality, how the British were trying to deprive that, and so on. Here, I wrote it up for you. Here's the thesis. simple. It's very simple. It's what we call a simple complex thesis. But X, Y, and remember in a short idea, I always say, hey, relate to what's important, which is a great skill to have, and that when I just give you a term, that's what I want. But in this, what are we relating to? We're showing how the British were depriving people of equality. Examples of the British depriving of rights. And then, same thing with, therefore we have no choice but to rebel. Relate it back to your thesis. That is an essay. So, let me give you another example. Here's a good question that I think we could probably do in class right now. Analyze the causes of the American Civil War. Okay, I know we're not ready for that. But, look at this thesis. And I get these sometimes. Look how bad that would be. By the way, if you read that thesis from a paper you were grading, what would your first thought be?
That it needs another sentence.
That's what?
That it needs another sentence.
Yeah, and even more than that, because what the heck is numerous? Oh, thank you. My first thought would be, oh, I'm going to get garbage. Woo! Is this going to be a lot of words? This is going to be one big word salad. Stop happening. So, the next one. This is very low quality too. The problems in the American Civil War were economic and social. That's, I guess, their attempt at a why. Do you see what the X is? It does have this. So it addresses that. But that's not a good why, is it? Because what's economic mean? You have to say the economic issues over slavery, or the social issues about the different systems created by slavery. You need something specific there. So let's get to a medium quality one that's not that good, but it's not horrible. I get this one all the time. You see it? What's it missing? An X, Y, or A, B, and C? It has an X, because it does say the causes, analyze the causes of the Civil War, and it has that. The Civil War was caused. Is there a Y? No. There's no Y. It has no point. There's no position. I'm sorry, there's no position in this. It just lists out your very weak blueprints. But it's not horrible, because at least I know where they're going. So what, the first body paragraph here, here, here. Now, let's look at simple high quality one. This, that's the best kind of thesis for a time essay. Why? Time. That work? Address the question. I take a position, ideological north and south, and a good A, B, and C. And you'll notice something about the A, B, and C, unlike this one. I added a few words, a little bit of context, just a little bit more to give explanation. And I really add even more here.
Do you write all of these?
But, think about how this works then. I talk about the first paragraph. In fact, that topic sentence will mention the role of the federal government. I explain what it is, and then what do? I talk about the difference in the North and the South. The next one, talk about industrialization, the difference in the North and the South. Third one, spread of slavery, difference in the North and the South. If you do that, that shows a complex understanding of the question, because it's all organized and laid out there. And you read that, without a doubt, you know exactly where you're going with that is. No, you, as the writer, you've outlined your own essay, haven't you? Gracie, you getting this? Look at you're pondering your navel there. I'm not the one who has to write essays. I've done it. I'm old and befuddled. You get to write essays. And this is a harder one. You might not have time, but it's a good one. If I read that one, like, oh yeah, of course I did write it, so it's like, oh yeah, boy, that partridge is bright. I cheat. It's also easier when you know the material, but you notice it's 2 sentences? It's not too long, but it really does show a little bit that I know the context right there. So a way I'm kind of like bragging, right? Hey, look what I know. You're going to be really impressed. And that's it. Let's do one on your own. Write it either in your notes or on top of your paper, just to practice. We're gonna do this question right here. Analyze the compromises that led to the Constitution. Now, wait. Before we get to that, analyze the compromises. There were 3 compromises. The big state, small state compromise was what? Hey, we just had a test over this. It's also called the Connecticut plan, but
No.
the what? That's not big state, small state. Even that's another one. 3. It was what? Say it again.
Virginia and New Jersey.
Well, the Virginia and New Jersey were the small state, or the Virginia big state, New Jersey small state. Connecticut is also called the Great Compromise. By the way, did you remember that now?
Yeah.
The Great Compromise. The big states versus small states. Then the 3/5 about population. Remember how do they count what?
3 numbers for everybody.
Yeah, for slaves. And then the last one, the slave trade compromise. They won't touch slavery for how long? 20 years, but the government can regulate what type of commerce? Interstate commerce. So, there's your compromises. You must address this. Why did they do this? What was the problem? Think about it. All right, I'll give you a couple minutes. If you can do this in a couple minutes, then you roll it. You're ready to write an essay. In fact, we might do this in class. Go. Right. And don't worry about the perfect words. Generically, for why do they need a compromise? Just very generically, kind of the base reason. Because all of them are slightly different, but what was happening? I'll explain an example, reading the others in a second. By the way, if you need a compromise, that means people are disagreeing. Who is disagreeing? Generically. Not quite yet. Northern and southern what? What are there in the north? They're not colonies. What are they? Other states. No, heck, you didn't catch it. I know. States might disagree. Big states, small states, southern states, northern states, industrial states. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. And one thing you'll notice in thesis, I mean, obviously, you do them, they get easier when you know what they get easier, but you have to have specific facts in it. You just can't have generic things in it. Like in your blueprint. It compromises over stuff and other stuff and complicated stuff. I'll study a little more on that. Then go back and look at it, make sure you address the point of the question, which is pretty basic. Right there, you took a position on why they needed to compromise, and then your blueprint. In fact, you can write that essay. Look it up.
Wait, how do you like take a side? It's not like a.
Okay, and some of you might actually get evaluated statement if it's right or wrong. And so that's a true position. In this one, you're just basically saying, okay, you're going to lay out then for this position, you're laying out what was the reason for the compromises. That's your position. This is the reason.
Okay. So by taking a side, are you pretty much explaining the reasons for the compromise?
Yeah, and that way you're just saying the generic reason why you need to compromise. Who was 5 people?
Oh, okay.
That's all. That's all. Now, some of you might actually like say this statement is correct because of this statement is false.
Mhm.
But for this one, you should say, oh, this is why they're compromising. Because all these states hated each other. Which is actually kind of close. Y'all hated each other. Got to come up with compromises, right? So that might all, that could be the position. Okay, go back and look at it. I'll give you another minute, and you're going to quick kind of evaluate each other. I want you to criticize, get in the face of your neighbor, point at them what they did wrong. We're pretty close. I know everybody wants to get a good one. They're trying to be perfection. Okay, I'll give you a second to finish your last words, and then as soon as you're done, pick somebody, a neighbor, and just kind of read to each other your thesis statements, and talk about them real quick. And why don't you guys go together real quick? Go here. Go here. You might need 3. Might you 2 going together? Are we done here? Calvin, you mind going with, or is that okay if you guys go together? Why don't you two go together? Just read each other's thesis. You should read. Just read it CBC, an X, a Y, and an A, B, and C. That was yours? Go back and look at it, talk about it, see if you can address the X. Make sure there's a Y. We have a Y? Would you believe you? Okay, now. You see the Y there? You read it?
I thought it was just putting words.
Because then everyone then did like a great compromise basis. Read this, or this. And that's
I have a question. So the essay we're writing on Thursday is about the industrial.
No, we're gonna do it on Monday. I'm giving it to you on Friday.
Oh, that's a short day.
Yeah.
But it's about the industrial revolution.
Yeah, I'll give you the questions.
So this is about all 10.
No. But it's a great thing about a broad question like that. You pick what's the most important. All right, how do we do? Is everyone happy with that? Would anybody read one you're thinking, I've got to read my essay, my thesis in front of everybody? Would anybody like to volunteer? Let me phrase that. Either you volunteer or I volunteer you. Read it, it's good. Please. Well, then it is. Just when you took a drink. Yeah, that was my plan.
Yeah, okay. The compromise that led to the writing of the Constitution was an agreement between the fighting of the first U.S. states. It was the Great Compromise, which connected small and big state government. Secondly, the Three-Fifths Compromise, which stated the population vote for African Americans. And lastly, the Slave Trade Compromise, which shut down slave trade and non-slave African Americans.
Good. That's very good. You addressed the question, compromise and constitution. What was the why? You have all these states fighting. You had to find something to bring the states together. And then you have the Great Compromise, you have a little bit of explanation. And that's the thing, like the Great Compromise, you explain it and you go back and explain big states fought small states. You brought it all back to the thesis. Anybody else want to read those? Go ahead.
The three main compromises that led to the birth of the United States Constitution were the Great Compromise to limit the unequal powers of bigger states, the Three-Fifths Compromise to regulate population voting in the South, and the Slave Trade Compromise to set aside the issue of slavery for 20 years. All these compromises were to satisfy the South to achieve recognition.
Works. It's good. You have the main elements of it. You have the blueprint. That works. Anybody else? To get the point on this, we're going to do another one in class tomorrow. I'll be going through class. I'll say, boom, write a thesis. Wouldn't that be fun? And then on Friday, I'm going to give you 2 essay questions. You might, sometimes you hear them called prompts. I don't know why I don't like calling them prompts. I like calling them questions, even if it's a statement, because I just do. And I'll give you 2. You must pick 3 of them. And then you'll write all 3 of them on Monday. Okay, so let's go back to your seat. And
You're gonna give us 2 prompts and we pick 3.
you 2, pick 1. That's what you're going to write on Monday. You can come in. And here's the thing. You can come in. I'll talk a little bit more about this on Friday. I want you to come in prepared. Have an outline, have your thesis. I want you to be ready. I'm still going to grade you on what you put in there, but I want you to be ready, feel good about it, and sit down and write. 40 minutes.
We can have an outline.
Huh? Yeah.
And our.
Oh, but don't forget, it better be a good essay then.
Yeah.
That's always the thing. If they say the more stuff you do at home, the more I can expect. But then again, I want you to come in feel very good about that first essay. I want you to feel good about it. Write me a good essay. And then when the bell rings, boom, you're done. And I rip the paper up and you write another one.
Would you be mad if we walked in here before?
You won't be, you're more than welcome to do that.
Really?
And then I'll rip it up and give you a different question.
Oh. But you can have an outline.
No, you can have an outline.
Yeah.
You can have an outline. Okay, let's go ahead and sit down and I'll tell you what you can have on an outline. I'll tell you that on Friday. All right, so I know the most about ready, but there's one thing I wanted to get to in the notes, so let's get to that. We'll do more thesis statements, I promise. After doing that, is it a lot different than what you got in other classes? Little bits? What?
We're not used to doing that.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, is getting that position. If you get used to getting, oh, by the way, you know, I said bickering states. The position sometimes is just like something that your blueprint has in common. You know what I mean by that? Something it has in common with the other one. Go ahead. Say it again. Well, that's a great thing about education. No, this is a great thing about life. Sometimes you have to adapt to other people. So, did we get to this? What do we get to here?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Do we get lost legal and political rights?
Kind of.
Yeah, women lost illegal. Did I mention Republican womanhood?
Yeah, you talked about. You finished on culture.
And remember how women are supposed to not care for the children, talk about their moral, and have to go out breeding. Did I say that in class?
You said their first goal is to get married, then have kids, and have kids.
Yeah, and then care for the kids. And so the sphere of the women would be at home. And they will be responsible for the moral and ethical upbringing of the children. Well, the husband goes off and works, and the exciting work, I know life wasn't like that, but this would become like cult as in this is what people are supposed to do. And the woman's responsible for the home. And she will provide that education. And by the way, who will teach the young girls how to tell them their only goal in life is to get married, have children, and be good housekeepers? Their mom. And so then they will teach their children. And then their children will teach their children. To where soon, and do get this down about, I don't know if I mentioned it yesterday, to where people think this is natural. The cult of domesticity, people think that's always been this way. And this should remind you a little bit of, remember we talked about racism? How people just assume they can. Sexism and racism are very much alike. There's so many elements that are the same. And in many ways, sexism is even, its tentacles are even deeper embedded in society. Think about any commercial you see now on television, if it involves cleaning products. For the most part, who's doing the cleaning? Who's doing the care for the children? Yeah, it's most of the women, isn't it? And it's so natural, people just assume it now. Oh, the only time a man does it, usually they're almost like making fun of the men for doing it. Not always. And then the woman will come in and kind of clean up after him. Why? Well, that's kind of a humorous way to reinforce the cult of domesticity. The man is kind of entering the woman's sphere. Republican womanhood is a little bit different. Republican womanhood is this, that women will teach their children to be good citizens in a republic. That's Republican womanhood. It's slightly different. About 10 years ago, they had an essay question on the AP exam. Republican womanhood. To be good citizens in a republic.
All children or just daughters?
Well, your children. That's kind of like the same thing. It's called the domesticity. But ironically, then, this began to spirit the women, and therefore women actually, these 30 or 40 years after the Industrial Revolution, women lost legal rights. We already talked about how they lost economic rights, and they also lost political rights. Many states, women could vote in 1800. By 1840, they could not. And pretty soon, people just thought that's the way it always had been. I mean, my guess is all of you probably thought women couldn't vote ever. Yeah. I believe that too. I mean, when I read that, I was like, wow. I went to a couple places that showed this. It really was an eye-opener. So a lot of this is getting back rights they had. And there's something else about this. What happened to the number of children that families begin to have? By the way, did families get bigger or smaller? A lot smaller. Before the Industrial Revolution, what do you need children for? Workers. After the Industrial Revolution, families no longer produce. What are they? What it means when you have to go buy what you need. That means money that comes from the wage system is now necessary to feed the children. Family sizes went down. Children went from being an economic necessity, which I know sounds weird, to choice. And if it's a choice, shouldn't you like them? I'm only slightly kidding. One more thing. One more thing. Don't you want to be nice things to them? Do nice things for them? I wonder if there's going to be a holiday that will be created by the Industrial Revolution for all these new factories to sell all the junk they made and convince parents that they want to be nice to their children. Do you want to see a Civil War era cartoon, everybody? Before you go, everyone look up here. Civil War era. That's where Santa Claus comes from. The Industrial Revolution. Huh? He actually, there's St. Nicholas and other things, but that was very great. Fat Santa Claus, Industrial Revolution, Thomas Nast.
I came in.
All right, let's go. You sit down. Always causing trouble. Matt, that was a good thing. You can write that essay now.
Yeah, bring it on.
I've never seen him.
I've never seen him so crazy.
I know. And
We all start talking.
I want to talk about her.
why are you so formal today? Like,
Yeah, why did you?
Formal.
Wait, did you get a haircut? Let's say you got a haircut.
Huh?
that's, I've never.
No, I
a
just
dark
got
color. I know. You always wear light colors.
Jeremy's talking. What's going on?
What is wrong? And I got almost all my hair cut.
Are you okay?
You ought to see how fast I can run now.
I know.
I did not leave our place right now. You've been gone for like a month. 3 days. Okay, 3 days. It feels like a month. Oh no, 4 days. You're right. Come on.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.